We're talking about the Lighthouse. Of the different things that we have watched, this is the most artsy film.
Yes.
Hark, Triton, hark!
Get me the hell out of this place and suck the rasta.
You're not a fan of me lobster. Are you not a fan of me
You're
lobster?
not fine. Have you way I like it cooking. This is a great movie just to go and experience.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Narratives and Nonsense. I don't know why I have accent. We're friends talking about random and recent stories, newsworthy or otherwise. It is a nice, mellow Sunday. We have finally gotten some, like, not scalding heat. It's just a nice cloudy day in the 60s down here. How are you, Connor? How's Canada?
Pretty much same nice weather today, just a slight breeze, nice and sunny. It was raining quite a bit the last week or so, so that was a nice little change. Got absolutely soaked at work, was awesome.
Eek.
Got some use out of my rain gear though, so I guess that's a positive. Yeah.
Did it end up raining on you when uh you got the luxury of work golf, or was that all sunshine?
It's sprinkled just a bit when we were playing golf, but I was done well before it got too heinous.
Okay. All right. So like at the tail end kind of thing, or just like,
Yeah, like it was just
and we're
some
done.
sprinkles, and then we finished, and then like a couple hour, like an hour or two later, it started raining. But we were all done by then, so it's
Nice.
nice.
Sweet.
Had a
Anything else
ton of
in your week?
releases, and sorry. As usual, it's 440K. Got a ton of releases coming out right now, so that's been fun. Like sorting through all that, trying to watch all the YouTube videos, figure out what the heck's going on with like all the other armies. So fun as always, looking through data sheets. Best.
I gotta keep up. I gotta keep up. No, I get that on a fundamental level because good lord, when I was keeping up with Hearthstone, like just all right, what's in this balance patch? Who's been buff? Who's been nerf? Tell me more. Cry a little.
What
Uh,
do I have to try to attack for?
I finally kicked Hearthstone a couple years back. I'll never look back. They gypped me out of one achievement, and that was my final breaking straw. It was already like testing my patience for a while. That was it. That was the one. Um,
I miss it. It was a fun card game, but yeah, like,
yeah,
I'm just getting on it.
it's you play it religiously or you spend a lot of money, and I am
Yeah,
poor. I'm like,
and
no,
like you
thank
can't
you.
really like drop out so much. Like if you
Hmm.
don't play it like constantly, kind of it's always hard to fight back. So that was always
Yeah,
my issue.
yeah, exactly. Otherwise, goodness, how's my last week? It's been raining down here a bit too, and we needed it desperately. It was just unpleasantly hot for a couple days there. So now that it's finally rained, we're in like 60s, 70s. I'm like, all right, this is manageable. I'm down. Like if it dips into 80s, let's go. Like that's the full extent. Otherwise, keep me in the lower temps. I'm all for it. This next week it looks like it's gonna be 80s and 90s for Monday through Wednesday, and then after that we're gonna get rain and it'll drop back down to like 70s, 80s range, and I'm all right with that. I'm good.
Nice.
That's a good summer temperature to me. Otherwise, gosh, tonight or yesterday for those listening, more Halo Infinite. Woo! This last Saturday we did KOTOR again. We're still on Terrace. We just finished off all of the arena championship nonsense. Took on a gentleman called Bendix Starkiller to get the bounty on him in a death match. Yay! Um, it'll be a couple weeks because the next couple weekends are busy for Marcus. So who knows when we'll
Decent.
we'll actually get off Terrace, but that's Knights of the Old Republic for you. We finished Kingdom Hearts 2. We put it to bed. We attempted some of the boss fights. We beat some others, and from here, because John's on a strict, quick timetable, he's going to be leaving the state. We're going to be jumping into 358 days over two, which I'm very excited for because that's where it's like, all right, let's get into some like of the emotional craziness, and we're with that game it's a little bit harder to like grind it without progressing story stuff. Like there are missions that you can do to get rewards, but I can like
Hmm.
ease up. a little bit on working on it on the side, because with Kingdom Hearts 2, I was grinding a lot outside of when we were streaming just to try to like get us higher level, get us closer to the end, get us better positioned for fighting bosses, doing all the side objectives, blah blah blah. And then we ended up watching the secret movie. Don't have to worry about that
Nice.
much on a DS game. Let's go. That made me very happy. And then goodness, we're still doing our Tuesday hangouts. We played a lot of Gartic Phone this last week. We had a lot of fun. I am getting a new cord to plug in my tablet with, so that I can draw more reliably without having to like switch up my entire monitor setup in order to get it plugged in. So we'll see how that goes. And then what Wednesday I had off from work because I had a show here in the state at the Gaylord Hotel. It was a uh, it was one of our silhouette shows. It was a private corporate event, so very like straightforward to the point, in and out, 10 minutes, not literally, but a little bit. It was a good time. It was a very cool setup for the screens because it as far as like the technical stuff from like what the audience would see, there were five like giant LED screens, and the center three were like whatever was happening with either the show or like during the announcements and speakers and blah 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 that were coming for the event. And then the two side screens were cameras for either showing a whole view or extra details, or it would just switch to a new thing. So seeing silhouettes on multiple screens, that was really cool. I kind of hope we do something like that again. It I don't know the last time that we did something like that, and certainly not to that same scale. So that was really cool. Um, yeah, that's been my week. Very good, very
Nice.
bueno. Um, Besides that, we do have some news from this last week, which are
No,
very fun.
no.
I think one of the cooler things is there's a gentleman by the name of Kevin Ford. He has been he's a loving father of four, and one of his daughters ended up setting up a GoFundMe page for trying to work toward his retirement. They had a goal of 120,000, and it was mentioned how this guy has been working at Burger King for 27 years to support his daughters, get them through high school, get them through college. Thankfully, the Burger King he works at, that his employers unionized, so he was able to have health care throughout that whole endeavor, that kind of
Nice.
stuff. And the internet fell in love. And with a lofty GoFundMe goal of 120,000 over X weeks that normally happens with GoFundMe's, Kickstarters, all that kind of stuff. This gentleman is approaching 150,000, and it's been like 5 days. so
Holy.
so to say that they're more than grateful is an understatement. He's been
Just a bit.
nothing but appreciative and incredibly humble throughout this whole thing. One of the cooler interactions he's had is apparently David Spade threw 5,000 at it and said, "Hey, 27 years, keep up the good work." And in an Instagram DM, and the dude was like, "Holy crap, like dude, thank you so much, like super appreciative of all that stuff." And he's like, "Hey, you shouldn't take any time off until you hit the big 3-0." Basically. And he's like, "You sound like my boss." Like, what? In talking
Hey,
to
that for
David
sure.
Spade. So pure
Uh,
comedic genius, that interaction. I love it. So that was really nice and wholesome, especially with some of the other things that are happening this last week. On other like good news sides of things, we're talking about solar power cars. So we've been looking at
Sola.
electric cars for a while, but for solar power or solar paneled cars, that was something that was a little bit more of a distant dream. But it seems like we are approaching it a little bit faster. There was a there was a Dutch startup.
Dirge.
There we go. Dutch
He's
startup
dark there, bud.
by the name of Lightyear, and they announced their first solar powered electric car, the Lightyear Zero. Uh, coincidentally probably pre-planned, premeditated to be announced at the about the same time as the Lightyear movie, which they do not have any like affiliation with or whatsoever, blah blah blah. But the Lightyear Zero vehicle, it is partially solar powered. It has solar panels on the roof of the car, kind of going all the way towards the back windshield, and then the hood of the car. It's something that, because it is solar powered, um, it is meant to be supplemental to charging, but
Hmm.
it can reasonably have enough power even in cloudy environments to go like a couple of months without really worrying about the charge. They went by like what a typical commute in Amsterdam looks like. It's about 20 miles. And They said with like cloudy conditions, you could reasonably go about 2 months without worrying about a charge. And if it's sunnier out, you could reasonably go about 7 months without worrying about like, oh, do I need to charge this thing
Ooh.
up? So it sounds like
Jeez.
there's some good promise with it, and
Yeah.
um, it is
Look at that.
it is one of those, like, it is built to look like a luxury car. The thing looks like a speeding bullet kind of ordeal, very smooth all the way over. It is a nice pretty penny at $263,000. So
Ooh, baby.
outside my
Give me
price
that
range, but
triple.
it's getting there. It's getting there. Likewise, there has been a very fun development for a solar powered car in India. There's a gentleman by the name of Bilal Ahmed, who is an Indian mathematics teacher. This dude has been spending his spare time working on a solar panel car. Uh, it
Ooh.
has been about translating it from I think it's ruples into euros into USD. It was a little bit more than $19,000 that he sunk into this side project over 11 years. Uh, but he now has a solar panel car that has more solar power panels than the Lightyear like supermodel looking one does from the Dutch startup. Uh, it's almost entirely solar powered, um, and the biggest problems that he's been running into as far as like making this thing happen is he doesn't have a lithium ion battery, so he doesn't have the best of batteries for like storing electricity. He doesn't really have a lot of the tools needed to try to get this, so he had to try to overcome that. And then in trying to talk with mechanics about what he even wants to do, there's not enough mechanical know-how where he is for them to understand what he's
Mmm.
explaining to do, which is
Jeez.
a big chunk of why it took 11 years. Because, if you got somebody that's like, well, I worked on a car before as like your mechanic, and trying to like jump from that to, yes, let's completely replace this engine with solar power panels and battery to make this thing run,
Like,
that's a
good
big
luck,
jump.
dude.
That's a big jump. So ironically, it is more solar powered than the Lightyear one. It is a little bit more uh, responsive to the environment because naturally he doesn't have the same energy storage capabilities. But he is hopeful for potentially having this be something that he can get funding for. He can use this as a way, at maybe the bare minimum, of providing jobs and having people learn a little bit more about engineering and mechanics and that kind of stuff, because that is something that's underserved in his section of India. He actually mentioned that if he had funding, he could have been the Indian Elon Musk, which I think is just a great mentality to have about it.
No
It's just like,
kidding.
hey, if I had more money, let's go. But yeah, 11 years. What a dedication for a side job, like thing, hobby, task that you're doing. And ultimately like one that's beneficial for people world over if this explodes into something bigger. So that one was really cool. Speaking of like people getting a little bit more uh people applying ingenuity in places you wouldn't expect. There is an Italian startup that has been working since 2020, February of 2020, literally right before all the shutdowns and stuff. So great timing. Um, that has been working on a new form of battery, and normally like the best thing that we've got right now is lithium ion. It's kind of a big deal, but it's not a really great scalable energy storage solution. It's something that's very intensive in terms of material costs and like exactly how much it can store. So usually when it comes to electricity, we produce electricity by demand, but that's problematic in a renewables sense because not every
Mm.
renewable is always going to be consistent. Sometimes you're going to have a little bit less solar power available. Sometimes you're going to have a little bit more wind available, that kind of thing. So being able to store it is a huge task to undertake. Well, with this Italian startup, they have created a CO2 battery that is supposedly half the cost of a similarly sized lithium ion battery. Um, right now, they're working at setting it up at a 20 to 200 megawatt hour plant to really push the envelope with it. Um, in terms of scale, it's something where, like here in the States, that would provide power to like literally thousands of households. Um,
Oh my God.
but what's most interesting is how this plant works is you basically have a dome that's full of CO2. As you generate electricity, it ends up compressing this CO2 into a liquid CO2 form. And then when you need electricity, you just change it back into a gas, and that's the end of it. You just
Huh.
let it basically like expand into its regular state, and that by turning it into a gas turns a turbine, out comes power, voila, rinse and repeat. There is like there of course there's more steps as far as like boiling. There is water involved, but water and CO2 are much more readily available than than trying to build like a full lithium ion battery. And it's an interesting use for CO2. Is there a more effective
Yeah,
gas? Who
right?
knows? But like it it is a strong proof of concept, and materially it costs way less while still being able to work and generate power um, on
Hmm.
demand. So we'll see if that's something that ends up exploding, especially as people have been shifting away from gas things, away from fossil fuel, that kind of stuff, trying to push for cleaner energy. You know, double that down with all the stuff that's happening in Europe with Russia and the Ukraine and whatnot. Um, we'll see where it goes, but it's very, very exciting. It does feel like a very uh, future power plant looking thing like you might have in SimCity where it's just like, oh yeah, your battery is just this like big bubble, you know, a big
No
bubble with like
kidding.
a bunch of like tubes next to it. So we'll see where we go with it. Another very interesting application of like things that we have is just a matter of where you put it. Um, uh, for Chile and Morocco, they've been looking at fog nets. So in Chile, it's been something where fog nets are basically a multi-layer mesh. There are certain places in Chile where the mountain ranges just are incredibly arid. They do not get any moisture. It all gets caught on the way, kind of thing. So
Hmm.
what they end up having to do is rely on like oceanside fog because you do get that like lower hanging fog as it comes in. There's moisture in the air. It's just a matter of how do you make it into water. In Chile, they've been using these fog nets. Again, it's a multi-layer mesh. It's something that allows the water to condense, and then now you've got it in liquid form. Woohoo! Um,
Whoop.
they've been applying this in Morocco. There is now the largest fog net setup site with 6 nets, literally providing like thousands of square feet of fog net mesh surface area. It's something where it's now providing literally thousands of liters of water for per day for well over I think the number was like 1,600 people in Morocco. And this is something where because of how successful it's been doing in Morocco, there's some people that are looking at it as, hey, maybe this is a solution, or at least one of multiple like supplemental solutions for places like California, where it's a little bit dry, to say the least. So we'll see if that's something that starts to expand. But cool solutions for cool things. Um, and then the last thing, just a quick update on the EU and Ukraine situation. The EU has granted Ukraine candidacy for joining the European Union. Um, it's been something that they've been working towards for a very long time, and in the wake of all of the Russia craziness, it's something that they've been trying to like speed run them through. There are different criteria and requirements. I know that what was it? Moldova was given candidacy a little bit more recently. There are places also in Eastern Europe where they've been looking at candidacy, but they still have to work towards some of those sub goals in order to meet the EU's standards and needs for membership. But it's a huge step for Ukraine, and it's also at a time where there has been a 15-year high for support for EU membership, even in spite of Brexit having just happened not terribly long ago. So it's very interesting to see how how that's all coming together. So we'll see if the Ukraine eventually ends up joining the European Union. Woo! Uh, and now for some fun holiday stuff. One thing that is worth noting, especially in light of combat out there, is it is PTSD Awareness Day. So keep an eye out if you have friends or family that suffer from it. Always be vigilant, keep a lookout for them, be supportive of those that have PTSD. It doesn't necessarily have to be specifically combat. You can get PTSD from all sorts of traumatic incidences and issues like natural disasters, for example, traumatic relationships, and so on and so forth. So always worth a shout out. Otherwise, we do have some other fun holidays for today. Bingo Day, Sunglasses Day, much more silly, much more uplifting. Um, I used to play bingo with my grandpa, and I'm gonna say his wife because it's not my grandma, but technically by law, one of those situations. Anyway, I used to
Yeah.
play bingo with them right next to our dance studio. That was a fun time. Sunglasses. I always think of the song "Sexy." One of the, I think there's three of them. Songs "Sexy Shades" that Charlie Puth made like way back when he was a YouTuber. Now he's an international superstar and deleted all of his old YouTube stuff, and I'll frankly never forgive him. And then there's also Onion Day, Orange Blossom Day, and Ice Cream Cake Day. Yay! I love ice cream cake. It's so good. Uh, IMO hands down the best version of cake there is. Um, Connor, if you had a
Yes.
favorite ice cream cake, what would you say it is?
I don't like ice cream cake.
My heart. I'm dead.
I don't.
I'm off screen now. I'm gone. Do you like ice cream or cake better?
Ice cream.
Ice cream? Favorite flavor?
Yep.
I'm a mint chocolate chip fan myself. I love mint, like in almost any form.
Oh, pistachio.
Ooh, that's a good one. That is a good
Yeah.
one. Sweet. Well, that's our holidays, that's our news. And now for the meat and taters, the Lighthouse. We're talking about the was
Bum,
it
bum, bum, bum.
2019
Sure.
indie movie gem with Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson taking the reins the entire time.
Great
I mean,
duo.
holy crap, it's really well done. I would say of the different things that we have watched on on behalf of this podcast, this is the most artsy film. The cinematography, if I were to describe it in a single word, is it is about the aesthetics. Like
Yes.
hands down, there's so much. Um,
Mm.
I I could see that being taken in a hipster way, and to some extent, I agree. It is
But
something
it
where
does not care.
it does
It
not
does
care.
not care.
No, it embraces what it is. It's something where they went out to go and
You gonna
get
learn today.
old school film in order to actually capture everything for this. Um, because of the film that they were using, because it's actual film and not just recorded on digital, they had to like super overexpose, i.e., really brightly light the rooms, the shots, the scenes, just so it would show up on the film. Um, I mean, there's a lot of in-depth craftsmanship that makes me think this is much more of a work of love for film and cinematography as a whole than I don't know any project in recent memory. Like
Mm.
at the very least, I mean, when you switch your film for something that has to be uh, lit a certain way for exposure, it changes everything in terms of how you end up making the scenes. So one of the things that we wanted to shout out is like the costuming and the props look really good. All of the costuming, it looks like it's a 1920s late 1800s type time frame. It looks like it's very much older period piece garments, but all of the stuff has to be custom made in some form or fashion, because if they just wore the outright like authentic costume piece, it might not show correctly on the film because of how brightly light everything has to be in order to capture it on the film. It's insane. Um, so lots of not just attention to detail, but attention to the shifts necessary to make the detail work in the first place. Much less like the location that they filmed it is fantastic. It was something where for some of the behind the scenes, like Willem Dafoe mentioned just like how grueling and brutal some of the days were, where like there's tons of rain coming down, the waves are crashing in the background. Like it was a hard place to film, but it was very much a labor of love. So he literally said something to the effect of, yeah, it was really tough, but god damn, we love it, like we're gonna keep going through, is kind of the
Yeah, they picked
mentality,
a
and
rough
it
one to
works.
do.
Yeah, and it works. It functions like no other. The performances are fantastic. The whole of it is very weird. I think one of the most interesting choices for the cinematography, since they went and did it on film, is having it be in a square aspect ratio, which I think lends to it having this old timey black and white aesthetic of like early 1900s type era, and then it also makes it feel more claustrophobic. As far as broad strokes, this movie is kind of about Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson's characters working at a lighthouse. Wouldn't you know? In the lighthouse, they're working at a lighthouse, and they just slowly lose their minds. That's the very large broad stroke of this movie, and I think that having it be a different aspect ratio from what people normally see, and uh, frankly having to cram things more together within the shots itself, it really does lend to that kind of claustrophobia, and like, hi, we're trapped at this lighthouse, we can't get out, neither can you, as an audience member like peeping in through the window. um so that was really impressive, and then just a lot of like the landscape e shots, and the longer takes, or longer scenes without cuts, like it feels very Charlie Chaplin era 1920s. In some
Mm.
places it almost lends itself to kind of slapsticky looking stuff, where especially with some of the humor that's in this movie. I think my roommate Marcus, he loves this movie to death. I mean, he talks very highly of it a lot, even prior to me engaging with it. And
Mm.
one of the things he says is, he's like, "This is the funniest horror movie I've seen in a while. Like, it's just weird in how it blends the two." Um, and I think that's a good, that's an accurate description for some of the stuff.
No kidding.
Like goodness. Uh to jump over to like the acting side, Willem Dafoe I think really stands out. Both of them are fantastic in this, but Willem Dafoe, um, uh, he it's both a combination of like this assumed authority, him being like the domineering figure in it, which we'll talk into, more of like the plot and character meanings behind it, but he has this monologue that just goes on, and he doesn't blink throughout the entirety of it. Like, especially when you take into account that he has to be lit that much brighter. So you're basically like
So
staring
very
down the
bright.
sun, not blinking for this entire monologue about not liking your cooking. like ultimately, it's
It's
just
a nice fucking
it's
lobster tail.
weird. It's great. It's so good. Um, I before we started recording, I think Connor, you put it really well that like you haven't seen this kind of level of uh commitment to the campy since like Spider-Man.
Absolutely no shame.
yeah,
Completely unironic.
it really though he full on pulls out like OG Green Goblin vibes, and not notably not Daddy Oscorp Osborne. It really is just Green Goblin on crack. uh and as like a early 1900s piratey speaking swab the deck sailor speak accent the whole way through. uh, um, as far as Robert Pattinson goes, it's interesting because he feels kind of bland at first. He feels very much like the blank slate, like self-insert character that you might see in a lot of other, well, just narratives. You get that a lot for here's the character that doesn't know what anything is and where they're going. Harry Potter is a great example. Luke Skywalker is another example. You get that element at first of just like, yeah, I don't know what's really going on here, but you slowly start to unravel pieces of like his backstory. Some of it may be real or not real, question mark. Everyone starts losing their minds, so who knows? Um, as
Who
he just
knows?
descends into this madness, alongside Willem Dafoe, because I think Willem Dafoe also goes a little stir crazy with it, and it's
Well, when you
fantastic.
start drinking turpentine.
Yeah. yeah, we ran out of alcohol, so turpentine and honey it shall be. Let's go. so, uh that's us speaking about like the filmmaking aspects of it. Very good. Go and see it. We're entering the outright true spoiler territory. Get out of here. And a 3 and a 2 and a
Yeah.
1.
Get Eddie.
Murders. uh I think plot wise it feels very simple. You have these two men go to work at a lighthouse, they end up getting stranded, they end up going crazy. Like plot seems very very to the point. It's a delivery mechanism for here's them in their setting, now let's do a character study. And really like the going by like that simplistic view, the only like prior plot thing is Willem Dafoe is experienced at lighthouses. Robert Pattinson is
New
not
guy.
experienced, worked at like a timber yard, and is like running away from his past a little
Let's
bit.
make some more
He's
money.
trying to like start a new life thing. We're gonna go the straight and narrow. That's kind of the plot. Then they
It's
get
supposed to
stranded, they
just
go
be a
crazy.
month-long shift as well.
Yeah, and where it becomes this like character study and starts diving into almost supernatural themes and this weird mix of how much of it is it actually supernatural, is it just psyche, is it a sanity thing. That's where it starts to really shift in this movie. um I think for the broad strokes of like what's presented to the audience, because there's a lot of things that are like inferred, we get the sense that Robert Pattinson's character either witnessed or murdered a colleague at a timber mill that he was working at prior to this job. Whatever the true cause source of that person's death, we do know that Robert Pattinson's character assumes that name when working at the Lighthouse. Willem
But
Dafoe,
that isn't really his name.
yeah, yeah, and Willem Dafoe's character like picks it up at some point further in that that's like not what's actually going on. A big part of Willem Dafoe's character is he's like, yeah, I've been a wiki. I'm the one that touches the light. No touchy. You get to do all the like swabbing the decks and stuff. Make it nice and prim and pram. He's very domineering. He's very much like I'm your boss here. This is how this goes. Um, you know when I go to toast you, you toast back. It's bad luck to leave an empty toast. Um, so he becomes this almost abusive. I don't want to say outright, but certainly almost uh
Very
throughout the
commandeering.
start, and it just grows and grows as it goes along. Um they do have I think a bit of a friendship that blossoms where Robert Pattinson's character I think starts to open up a little bit of time, like he actually drinks the alcohol at one point, otherwise he avoided it like the plague. They have like drunken singing and dancing, and like Willem Dafoe's character is like laying on Robert Pattinson's lap, and it's just like they're just venting at
In a
each
good
other.
old time.
Yeah. It's also very interesting because they have this like understanding of, hey, you're not going to open up that much to the other. That I don't know how much of that is a like avoiding hurts or deeper questions type of thing. If it's a hey, this is a professional relationship, we're buds but we're not friends kind of thing. Some people have said that there might be like a an aspect of this is maybe repressed homoeroticism type of stuff. I don't know if I agree with that. I can understand it, but I do think that this is more uh
Yeah, like I could definitely see that. Like
yeah.
I don't think that's
It
like out of the realm of possibility, but that
yeah,
wasn't really what
the
I was thinking.
there's some moments throughout this where we see Robert Pattinson's character kind of get away from Willem Dafoe on this small island with the lighthouse, and they have at some point it's found there's a like porcelain mermaid doll that was like in the holes of one of the pillows, for example, and at some point he ends up jerking off to it and imagining himself like having sex with a mermaid kind of thing. Like it's it's a little bit weird in that sense. It almost becomes like a well, they're stuck here with each other, so is this like absence of companionship? Now they're just gonna. To me, it felt more like they're both lonely than it is a
Hmm.
they're hiding true feelings for another.
Yeah,
That's
just
how
the
I took it.
frustration and build up.
I'm also a straight white male, so who am I to say I am the most vanilla, like bland perspective in that sense? So there could be more to it, but that's not my takeaway. I do think it focuses on more of their relationship as at the very least their working relationship where it is this you do what I tell you and you does it the ways I
And you
says I
like
does
it?
it kind of thing.
I'll
Uh
tear me the hell out of this place and suck the rust off.
yeah. Yeah. And I think that's more of the focus, especially with the idea that they're kind of losing their minds and getting to the point of, they ran out of alcohol, so they're going to start chugging down on turpentine and honey. Like, it,
Honey.
yeah, it feels much more focused on like them going crazy aspect, which I thought was interesting. I also think with this movie going out from the character aspects and into like what is the point of this movie, I
Hmm.
think that uh, this does a very good job of capturing Lovecraftian elements, like the setting, the the dissolution of sanity. Um, to me, I don't think it touches into cosmological horror like some Lovecraft can. Um, Depending on how you interpret it. I, like prior to this, for the sake of brevity, Connor and I went through a whole bunch of rabbit holes of like, okay, what is this movie? Because as you go through and they slowly lose their sanity, at one point, Robert Pattinson's character lashes out and kills a seagull. And as said by Willem Dafoe in his great piratey voice, "'Tis bad luck to be killing gulls" or whatever. Uh, and it's assumed that as soon as he kills the seagull, that's when their luck changes. You can actually like physically see the wind change on the little compass sitting atop the roof.
Storm starts a brewing.
Yeah, and from there, they're supposed to be getting relief where the next shift comes in. They get to go off island. That doesn't happen. The weather gets worse and worse. They get more hostile with each other. It's something where Willem Dafoe almost like gaslights Robert Pattinson for a minute, saying like, "All right, well, how long have we been here? Has it been a day yet? Has it been 2 days? Has it been
2 days or
four weeks?"
4 weeks.
Yeah, 2 days or 4 weeks. Like it really is something where he's kind of egging Robert Pattinson's character on. Uh, Willem Dafoe mentions that he previously had a wiki, a lighthouse attendant that worked for him that slowly lost his mind, went crazy. Uh, and it feels like we're seeing that same thing happen to Robert Pattinson's character. He starts imagining having sex with mermaids. Uh, they end up fighting each other. I mean, again, one of the best scenes is Willem Dafoe giving this massive monologue, basically cursing Robert Pattinson. "Hark, Triton, hark!" Like, holy crap! It just goes on forever because Robert Pattinson's character didn't like his cooking. "You're not a fan of me lobster. Are you not a fan of me
You're
lobster?"
not.
It's
Right,
just
fine. Have your way. I like your cooking.
like it's both funny and horrifying at the same time. Like these guys are really getting pushed to their limits, and uh, eventually they outright start trying to kill each other. So they it starts with them trying to choke one another. Robert Pattinson ends up winning this fight and standing over his conquest, if as it were, and forces Willem Dafoe to bark and to walk on all fours on a leash into a hole that he's dug and starts burying him alive while Willem Dafoe is giving like another mini monologue
Huge
with dirt in
sermon.
his mouth. Like it's weird, it's terrifying, it's funny. Like it's such a strange like chain of events. Robert Pattinson ends up going in. The reason for this whole fight is, um, Robert Pattinson finds a book. He finds a bunch of pages and papers where Willem Dafoe's been like cataloging him just slowly going crazy, and it's meant to be like a they're working side by side thing, but that's not the case. And Willem Dafoe very explicitly says like he's getting more hostile and stuff. Recommends termination without pay, which
Mm.
really pisses him off. Like it again. It's like this weird abusive like assumption of authority that wasn't technically granted type thing. Like he has the experience, sure, but it's in the same way as like if you and your fellow line chef are both, you're just cooking, but he's been cooking at this restaurant for 10 years, but he's still a line chef and you're the new hire. It's one of those kind of power dynamics as far as how it should play out, where it's like, no, there's like actual boss who is in charge. That's who you should be going to. It's weird. Um, and following this whole endeavor, it's made very clear that the light at the top of the lighthouse, Willem Dafoe gets to manage that. Robert Pattinson does not. Willem Dafoe,
Even though they're supposed to share the responsibility.
yes, yes, and Willem Dafoe is kind of likening some of his responsibilities and his position at the lighthouse and tending to the light, kind of how like how he was married, kind of thing. Robert Pattinson at one point like gets in a full on argument about, dude, just let me see what it's about. Like, what, I'm curious. We're stuck here. Like, let me at it. Why won't you let me? That kind of thing. And after they finally snap, they get in the fight. They try to bury Willem Dafoe alive. Uh, he ends up going back into the lighthouse proper, and Willem Dafoe comes swinging at him with an axe and gets him in the shoulder. And
Oh,
again, right back to them fighting each other. But
like
this
nothing
time,
changed.
yeah, like nothing changed. And Pattinson ends up splitting his head with the axe. Is it's off camera,
Goes all
so
Friday the 13th on him.
yeah, yeah. And following it, he ends up climbing up the stairs to go and see the light. He sees the light, has a very like exaggerated, completely in awe. I don't know if I'd say it's I think purposely vague if this is a horrific reaction, if it's an orgasmic pleasurable reaction
Hmm.
to the light, and then ends up falling down the stairs. The last scene that we see is uh, Pattinson basically like ripped in half, being eaten by gulls in front of like very large timber, and that's the
That's all
movie.
she is.
Uh, now because it's the like fall down and then he's getting eaten by gulls thing, it leads a lot of like ways to translate that, whether it's he when he after falling down the lighthouse stairs, like is there's a time skip in there and he's like crawled out onto the edge of the like boat, or not the boat, the island, and is just not able to live after his injuries and the seagulls are now pecking him apart, if you want to go like that very literal sense. Or what I think is a little bit clearer is it's maybe more metaphorical, and that's where we get very interpretive with this movie. um I think you had a very good example of it being kind of because there is a lot of mythological references, Triton and Poseidon and all of that. So is this like a Prometheus Greek myth telling of like trying to steal the light type stuff? Um,
You get a little bit of even, you could even say Oedipus because he's kind of killing his father figure, and Willem Dafoe's character compares the lighthouse to being his wife a lot of the time. And
yeah,
so, like, there's a lot of like mythological or like folktale elements in this, I guess I could say.
yeah. If you want to
Um,
go very surface level on the myth folktale thing, don't kill a goal. It's bad luck.
exactly.
Don't
And a lot of old
don't
sea
leave a
stuff, like
don't leave a toast hanging. It's bad
with him
luck.
jerking off to the little statue of a mermaid, like that's classic, like
Being a
sailor stuff, you
mermaid,
know?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, being
And
lonely out at sea.
I think one of the more interesting like conclusions that could be made is if this is like a punishment limbo type of thing, and Willem Dafoe is like Karen on the river Styx, and he's the one that ferries the souls of the damned into the afterlife type of thing. That could be a vague like interpretation, and it just happens that this lighthouse is like the purgatory of sorts in between the limbo until you get to your afterlife. Um,
Or is this
yeah,
just him, like, he fell and cracked his head at the lumber mill, and he's just thinking this all like
Yeah, is
it's
this
crazy.
entire movie in his head, because it does seem like he's near wood rather than just at the lighthouse. So maybe this is something where he's dying and this is like his last thoughts as a dying Robert Pattinson getting eaten by a seagull. Like in the last like split second of life, you get this like full expiration of things. This could be more like a Groundhog Day repeated limbo where he failed this time, but he has to keep going through it to like learn his lesson type of thing, and that lesson goes unlearned. If you want to go that route, going back to like the Karen at the River Styx idea, if Willem Dafoe is like ushering him onto a new life, maybe this is his test trial to see whether he goes to heaven or if he goes to hell, kind of thing. Um, you get the is this actually supernatural with the fact that the goal is eating him at the end, and the goal is being bad luck. Is the light of the lighthouse supernatural? Is it something where the nature of the birds in the ocean, like, is that what is influencing this character?
Freaking Poseidon himself.
Yeah, it's it's crazy. I mean, we were talking like five or six different ways this movie is, and never came to any one conclusion over the other, because I think just about all of them are valid enough. Um, Especially if you want to go like the this is a sanity thing, and maybe it is in fact supernatural or cosmological, leading Lovecraftian. Um, there's certainly the imagery for it. I mean, goodness, at one point when they're fighting, Robert Pattinson is like choking Willem Dafoe's character out, and at one point he imagines that it's the person that he's implied to have killed or have seen the death of. At one point it's a mermaid. At one point it's Willem Dafoe, but now he's like full on Davy Jonesified makeup, like one of Davy Jones' crewmen, where he's covered in barnacles and
He's got
there's
like
and
yeah, it's all
full on
stuck on him.
tentacles trying to wrap around Robert Pattinson back. Like it goes full like fishy Cthulhu real quick in a couple of moments. Um, and it is very weird. And I think in the sense that like Inception has a somewhat ambiguous ending where you have the infamous spinning top, does it wobble, is it fine? Uh this movie, it kind of feels like it's eight of those. It really does. There's
All together.
so many ways. Yeah, and frankly, it could just be, yeah, they were at a lighthouse and slowly losing their minds and starting to drink turpentine and legit go crazy because they're not drinking alcohol no more. Like it's there's a lot of ways that you can view this movie. Uh, as far as like, all right, what is the grand plot?
What
Um,
is the deal here?
yeah, and it's so artistically done. Like
So
it
palpable.
looks
The
good, and it's
atmosphere is just. Oof.
so well
This is a
acted.
great movie just to go and experience. Like
Yeah, yeah. Uh, we were saying this is not a like popcorn and enjoy movie. This is you experience it and you dissect it after, and this is like a your feeling things movie almost, rather than a oh yes excellent, oh Iron Man saves the day kind of thing. It is not that.
what's happening? What am I?
I
What is
had
my meaning in all of this?
yeah, to me I had a very similar feeling with The Green Knight, where it's not an entertaining movie, it is an intriguing movie, I think, is maybe the way I'd put it. Where The
Hmm.
Green Knight is very like, yes, we're following medieval folklore tale, but it's much more myth uh focused. It's much more vague in how things happen and what is the meaning behind it. I will say I think that The Green Knight has much more plot involved, given that it's kind of following the myth of, well, the Green Knight as it was in
Yeah. It's a little
in
bit more
folklore.
defined.
Yeah,
This is kind of
yeah, that's a great way to put it. It's the Green Knight is much more defined, but still the same vibe as what the Lighthouse presents, where it's like, wow. um, but yeah,
nice.
very very good, very very well put
It's a great
together.
time.
I
I
love it.
really appreciate this movie.
Yeah, go and watch it if you haven't. If you sat through all the spoiler talk, it doesn't do enough justice. Like, yes,
Yeah, no.
spoilers, but go experience it because
Seriously.
it is unique. It is very unique. I don't know the last movie to have a square film adaptation that isn't simply just,
Yeah, four
oh,
by
do you want
three, like
widescreen or full screen? Like that era of film exists, and usually it's just one's compressed, one's stretched out, and that's kind of the end of it. Like, yeah, very direct. Anyway, outside of that, Connor, where can we check you out at?
as always, you can find me at 5 String Connor on YouTube, Band Cleric on Steam. Hit me up, see what's going on. Love you fucking dearly.
Yay! Uh, Sometimes you might catch him with myself and some other friends on Tuesdays. We have some like
Cruising.
fun time streamy stuff. It's like Gardic Phone, Pummel Party, maybe some Jackbox, things like that. Just fun silliness all around. Otherwise, if you want to see more of the both of us, Narratives and Nonsense, we post Monday evenings. If you want to see more of myself in particular, link to my YouTube channel, Gillidan for the win. That is Wednesdays. I'm playing Kingdom Hearts. We're about to start Chain of Memory, or not Chain of Memories. Oh no, no, we're not going back. We're not going back. 358 days over two.
Never
the
going
other,
back.
the other like mobile video game platform that isn't the PSP. We're getting there. We're getting there. That's Wednesday evenings. That's myself and my buddy John, who has never experienced Kingdom Hearts. I'm guiding him through. Boy, what a gem. And
Zany.
then what Saturdays on occasion, Knights of the Old Republic, not for the next couple of weeks because it's getting busy, but hey, it's another thing. And then Sundays, Halo Infinite. We're making progress. Boy, howdy. It's Halo Infinite is so much bigger than the other Halo games. Like,
No
holy
kidding.
crap. I actually will say, of what I've seen
It's
of the
almost
story so
infinite.
far, I think I've enjoyed it a lot more than the story in
Nice.
Halo Prime.
That's always nice.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see where it continues. I've heard it's good uh in its entirety. I mean, I'm still playing it if that says something. So, woo. Anyway, there you
Hell
are.
yeah.
I hope everyone has a fantastic rest of your week. Take
Don't
care.
die.
Don't die to any Robert Pattinsons or Willem Dafoes out there.